Hello everyone, welcome to the video guide for the Watercolor Sketch Photoshop Action. Before you go ahead with the technical features, I just want to show you some examples so that you can understand what this action can do for you. But if you want to jump right into the technicalities, you can do so with the timestamps below. Alright, with this Photoshop action, you just need to open your main image and you need to create two blank layers to mark the sketch area and the watercolor area. Now you need to mark the sketch area in a more precise and accurate manner that will give you a very crisp sketch artwork, and the watercolor area needs to be just painted in a rough manner to make Photoshop understand approximately the areas where you want the watercolor effect. And then as you run the action, you will get something like this. So with this action, I have tried to emulate real-life hand-drawn techniques like different hatchings, rough draft lines, even some zone lines along with the area of the hatching and all. So let's view some more examples. This one works pretty good with portraits, inanimate objects, and even architectures. I'll show you some examples. So here is a portrait, and this is the precise marking of the sketch area, and here is the rough marking for the watercolor area. And once the action is run, this is the final result. There are lots of different areas that you can customize, different levels of hatching, different levels of watercolor area. I'll show you in details each and everything once we run the action. Here is an example of an architecture or a cityscape. For this, since I want the sketch effect to be applied on the entire image, so for the sketch marking area, I have filled the entire canvas with a color, and for the watercolor, I have approximately marked a certain area, and this is the final result. Here is another example of a portrait. This is the sketch area, and this is the watercolor area, and this is the final result. Let's quickly view some more examples. Alright, with that done, let's add our image into Photoshop and get started. I'll select this image as our first example. And once our image is loaded into Photoshop, let's load up our actions and associated files. To do that, it's very simple. You just need to go to File, Open, and then locate your main download folder. It should be named as Watercolor Sketch Photoshop Action or something similar. Simply go inside that, and there you will find the help file which covers everything I'm saying over here in the video. And beside it, you will find one folder called Install Files inside. Once you go inside that, you will find three files: the main action file, the brush file, and the pattern file. You just need to select all of them together and hit open, and those three files will be loaded into Photoshop. Now you need to bring up your actions panel. For that, go to Window and go to Actions, and you will see that the action has been loaded into Photoshop. Now this action is divided into two parts. One is for images with the longer side between 2000 to 4000 pixels, and another one for images with the longer side between 4000 to 6000 pixels. Now by longer side, I refer to this vertical side for portraits and horizontal side for landscape images. Now I highly recommend you have a look at your image size by going to image and image size so that you can understand what the longer side is. For me, it's roughly around 3000 pixels. It's 2977. So I would be running the first action. So to get the best results, you must run the action according to your image size. Alright, with that in mind, we need to check few more settings. That is, go to image mode and make sure RGB color is selected, and also it's 8 bits per channel. Next, click this flyout menu beside this layers panel and select panel options. Now in this pop-out window, make sure use default masks on fill layers is checked, and also add copy to copied layers and groups is checked. This is very important that this use default masks on fill layers is checked, otherwise the action will not work correctly. Then you also need to go inside your brush tool and make sure mode is set to normal and opacity and flow, both of them are set to 100%. This is again a very crucial step. You need to make sure that opacity and flow are set to 100%, otherwise the action will not work correctly. Alright, with that done, now let's create our blank layers to mark the sketch area and the watercolor area. For that, I'll simply create one blank layer on top of my main image, and over here I need to mark it. Now you can use any technique that you want, like a quick selection tool or magic wand tool, object selection tool, or even pen tool. But all you need to do is, for the sketch area marking, you need to be as precise as you can. That will give you a very crisp sketch effect at the end. Here I'll use the subject selection feature that is available in the newer version of Photoshop. Now I'm selecting the main image and I'll go to subject from here. So Photoshop has already done a decent job in selecting my main subject. Now I just need to select the blank layer where I need to fill it with the color to mark my sketch area. Maybe I'll increase the size of this layer thumbnails so that you can understand a bit better. Now to fill it, you can simply go to edit and fill, and you can fill it with your background or foreground, any color. The color doesn't matter, but for the sake of better visibility, I'll simply select some red color, and you can simply also take one of the brushes. So this is the brush pack that got loaded when we loaded all the files, and you can simply take the first default brush and just fill it like this. And once it's filled in, I'll simply deselect the selection from select, deselect. So my sketch marking area is done. It's precise, it's just fits the subject. And now I need to roughly mark my watercolor area. For that, I again need to create another new layer on top of the sketch layer. Make sure this order is correct. Your main image should be at the very bottom, then the sketch layer on top of it, and the watercolor marking area on the very top. Here again, I'll take a different color. The color doesn't matter. I'm just taking a different color so that it's easier for you to understand over here. And with the same soft round brush, I will roughly mark the area where I want the watercolor. I recommend you do it in a rough way. That will give you better results. You can obviously modify it once the action is run. I will show you once I run it. Now that should be all, and we are good to run the action. Just again, I'll make sure my brush opacity and flow are set to 100%, and I'll also check my image size. My longer side is 2977, which is around 3000 pixels. So I'll select the action from the first set, which says for 2000 to 4000 sized images. I'll select the main watercolor sketch action and I'll simply click play. Now it will take some time for the action to finish rendering. I'll fast forward from here and get back when it's done. Alright, so the action has finished running and this is our final result. I'll quickly reduce the size of these thumbnails, otherwise the layers are going out of my layers panel. And before we jump into each and every detail of what is generated over here, I'll quickly show you another example. I'll use this landscape image and I just want to show you the art of possible over here, and I want to add the sketch effect to the entire image. I will mark the sketch area by filling the entire canvas. Now I recommend you not to do this for portraits and all, because here you will miss out some areas that I'll show you afterwards. But yeah, so since I want the entire sketch to be applied on the entire image, I have filled it completely with a color. And now on the new layer on top of it, I will mark the area where I want the watercolor to be. Now let's check our image size before we run the action. Again, the longer side is 2940, so it's again within the range specified in our first set of actions. I'll select it and I'll hit play. I'll fast forward quickly and we'll get back to it when it's done. So here is the final result for our landscape image. Now, just looking at the difference, the first thing that we lost by filling the entire subject with the color for the sketch is that we lost this peripheral sketch which is there around our subject. So for this, I recommend you not to fill the entire sketch area with the color if you are going for a portrait or some objects or figures. You can do it for the landscapes or cityscapes, but for portraits, I highly recommend you precisely mark out the sketch area. Alright, so now let's see what we have generated over here. At the very first, I feel you can go over these layers and groups which are marked in red. This says reveal color, paint on layer mask with white. So you can select the layer mask, you can go to the brushes and you can take one of this modifier brush and you can take color white as your foreground color, and you can dab some paints over here to reveal any areas where you want the watercolor to be. Now this group which says painterly color boost, adjust opacity. So you can simply boost up the color. This will brighten up and give some pumped up color saturation, but this might not look good everywhere. It generally looks good for urban sketches, city sketches. So let's do the very same and let's see. So I think it looks a bit better than what it was previously. Okay, now over here we also have a second action which says extra randomize color elements, run only after main. So since we have already run the main action, we can run it, and what this will do is it will try to randomize the color areas, the color splatters, the drips and the spray, and will try to create a new pattern. It may happen that you do not like what it was generated at the first run, but you do not want to run the entire action but only want to have a new color area. So this is a very neat and easy way to generate and randomize the color areas after you have run the whole action. And also here is another cool part, that is you can modify your color area with this. And what I mean by that is you can select your layer where you marked your watercolor area. You can take a color and a soft round brush, and maybe you can add some more area where you want the watercolor to be, and you just need to run this action which says the randomize color elements. You do not need to run the whole action, and this will again generate the color elements based on your new selection. So you see the color splatters and the brush strokes are added to this new area where I made the new selection. Alright, let's add some color areas over here just to make it look good. And now let's go over all the elements that are generated here. First comes the background elements. Inside it you have some paper textures. You can adjust the opacity of these paper textures. Let me zoom in a bit so that you can understand a bit better. Same goes for this default paper texture. You can adjust opacity as you want. Also over here I have added a vintage paper texture in case you want to give a vintage look to your watercolor sketch. And also we have a sepia paper texture. You can click it and you can get some interesting effects over here. Now if you want a different background color, you can simply double click on this PG color layer and you can change it to any color that you want. Next comes the image toning group. You simply need to adjust opacity and it adds some more contrast to your sketching areas. This is with opacity 0 and this is with opacity 100%. I prefer to keep it at 75% opacity. Next comes the main color elements, and it forms the bulk of our color splatters and blotches and brush strokes. So at the bottom we have reveal color. So we already have seen what it does. You can simply paint on this black layer mask with white color brush, take any splatter brush from the brush group that is provided, and you can add some new color areas. Then we have over here is color complete. You can toggle it on and off, and actually you need to couple it with the color partial layers. So over here you can partially show any parts of the colors. Maybe you want to only show the midtones but not the highlights. You want to just have a stylistic approach to the color that is generated. So the main complete color is broken up into several layers over here, which you can toggle on and off and give a stylistic approach to your watercolor sketch. I'll keep the color complete on for now and proceed with it. Also, you can paint on these layer masks of these partial color layers with black if you want to hide any part of it. Next we have over here is color soak. So what color soak does is it tries to create an watercolor soak, like the leak of a color into another color. So over here you can see, if I turn it off, you can see that the yellow color from the hat has seeped into the sky color. So this is what it does. You can simply adjust opacity over here, and here is a soak random and another one is soak marginal. So marginal soak is around the peripheral region of which you marked the sketch area, and for the color soak you can turn it off. You can see some random blotches of color soak happening on your colored areas. So I'll turn it off for now and proceed with the other layer which says original photo color. It may also happen that you do not like how the watercolor effect is generated. It may look to you a bit oversaturated or the color is distorted. For that you can simply turn off this original photo color, and this is the original color of the main image that you used at the very beginning. So I'll turn it off for here because I like the color that is generated over here. Next comes our sketch elements, and this forms the bulk of the sketchings and every other intricate details of the pencil drawing. At the top is our sketch hatching. Once you expand this group, you will find 6 layers which has different levels of sketching. So you can toggle on and off any of these individual layers if you want to give a stylistic approach. So it boils down to your personal preference, what you like. I generally tend to keep all of them on because that gives a fuller impression of the sketching effect. You can also use the layer mask to control any areas of the sketching that you do not want to show. You can select any of these white layer masks, you can take any of these splatter brushes, any of these modifier brushes, and in this case you need to select the black color and paint on the layer mask just like that if you want to hide any areas. And then here comes the sketch area lines, and here you will find 4 lines layer, and what this do is it creates some sketch lines around the zones of our hatching. So let me zoom in a bit so that you can understand a bit better. So as you can see, we have this hatching on the folds of his shirt. So if you toggle it off, you can see that there are some lines like covering the zone of the hatching. So you can turn it off if you want. You can paint on the layer mask with black if you want to precisely control the visibility in any areas. Next comes the sketch lines, and this actually forms the main structure of our sketching. If you expand the group, here you will find 2 kinds of sketch lines. One is draft sketch, another is precise sketch. So precise sketch is more of a fine detailed sketch lines. You can toggle any of these layers on and off, or you can even control the opacity of them. And the draft sketch lines are some rough lines that you see over here. So if I turn them off, I guess you can better understand the difference. So you can individually toggle any one of them on or off, or you can also control the opacity, and you can obviously paint on the layer mask with black if you want to precisely hide it in any part that you do not like. And next we have sketch additional. If we expand the group, we have some miscellaneous sketching over here. So the first is filler hatching. So this is the hatching which runs along the boundary of your sketch area. You can adjust opacity if you want to make it a bit fainter. Next we have the color hatching. This is the filler hatch that is covering our entire background. You can change the color of it. You simply need to toggle the visibility of this color layer on, double click on it and switch to any color. You can see the background filler hatching is now red in color. So I'll hide it for the time being. Next, we have some stray marks. You can again adjust opacity. So these are the stray marks. And then we have a margin stroke, and once I toggle the visibility, you can see what it does. And we have another additional margin stroke, and this is for the cases where you filled the entire subject with the color, which was the case in our landscape image. So over here, since we marked the entire canvas as a sketch area, all those filler hatch and the margin stroke went outside the canvas bounds, so it's not visible over here. So over here I can toggle the visibility on for this margin stroke additional, and if I want to hide it in any areas like this building or this gondola, I can simply select the layer mask and take one of the brushes and color black and simply hide it over here by painting with black on the layer mask, just like this. So that should cover the sketching lines and the sketch elements. Next, we come to the additional color elements. Over here we have the color droplets and the color sprays. So the first one is color droplets. You can toggle the visibility on and off. So these are random droplets that you see on our image, and you can also adjust the opacity of these layers. So here is color droplets more. So this is just an extra layer of color droplets. You can also paint on the layer mask with black if you want to hide any areas. Also, you can select the layer mask and paint with white to add any additional color droplets if you want. So for that, you can select the third modifier brushes, which is the color droplets brush, and make sure color white is selected. And then you can increase the size with square brackets on your keyboard and tab once or twice with color white, and you can see that color droplets are falling on your image. Next, over here we have black droplets, and this is the white droplets. You can toggle the visibility, and we have some black spray. Let me zoom in a bit. We have some black spray and we have some white spray. So the idea is same with all these images. You can toggle the visibility on and off, or you can paint on the layer mask to control precisely where to show or hide them, or you can also adjust the opacity if you want to make them fainter. Then we already covered this painterly color boost. You can adjust opacity and check if it looks good in your case or not. Next comes 20 color effects. These are 20 predefined presets. You can simply toggle them on and off to get some unique color casting on your finished result. And over here at the very end, we have some overall adjustments. So you can change the brightness from here. Maybe you can add some curves adjustment from here, the overall curves layer. You can also change the overall hue saturation of your image. You can also use a selective color layer to precisely control any color channel. Then we have over here overall color balance. You can target the shadows, highlights, or midtones with it. And then we have our overall gradient map. You can double click and change it to any gradient color, and the gradient map will apply on top of your image, just like this. You can also play with the blending mode a bit to get some interesting results. Here we have the overall gradient. Same goes over here, double click and you can change the gradient color to anything that you want. You can add some interesting color effects. You can also change the blending mode to see if that interacts in a different way with your image. And we have overall color fill if you want to add a solid color cast over your entire image, just like this. So that's all for the watercolor sketch Photoshop action. And one more thing that I need to show you at the very end, and that is we have another auxiliary action over here, and which says important help guides. You can simply select it and hit play, and it will generate a help guide for you, the one that I'm showing in this video, and these are also there in the document file. But if you want to refer to it at any point of time quickly when you are running the action, you can simply run that action and you can quickly refer to it. So that should be all for the watercolor sketch Photoshop action. I hope you like it. And if you want to check out other artistic Photoshop actions, I have a lot of them in my portfolio. The link should be in the description section. I'll be glad if you check them out. So that's it for today. I'll see you next time in my next video, and till then, happy creating.